You took a course at Evelyn Wood Speed Reading? No? Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'd like to call the August 7th, 2024 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6:30. Do we have need for a non-public, Mr. Pinio?
Madam Chairperson, we do 3 items, RSA 91A3, Roman numeral 2, lowercase b, hiring, lowercase d, real estate, and lowercase l, consideration of legal advice.
Okay. Consideration of the minutes of July 24th. Does anybody have any corrections?
Page 9, first reference to Deshays. It says, federal grant money, so second sentence, it says federal grant money can be used for a demonstration project.
Okay. I have page 8, K, Route 28 work. The second sentence, want to know and see from, and that should be the electric department. And then on the third line, it says what the width, we want to know from New Hampshire DOT what the width of the way will be. And those are my 2 changes. Does anybody else have any changes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept as amended?
Second.
I got a motion by Dave, second by Brad. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing. The Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. to consider a temporary event permit application for Kingswood High School to hold a high school cross-country meet on September 16th, 2024, from 3 to 6 p.m., 390 Pine Hill Road, Abenaki Trails, permit 2024-51. You just state your name for the record and give us a little overview.
Okay, Tony Belisle, head coach of the cross-country team, and this is Sarah Christian, head coach for the middle school cross-country team.
Okay. And would like to hold a cross-country meet, which will have high school and junior high students?
Exactly. So this is something we do every year. We were hoping, perhaps, that we could get permission to not have to come here every year to request permission. Maybe we could have like a 5-year permission for 5 years to do this, because then we could just work with Abenaki to schedule the date, if that's possible.
It's not part of the statute that falls under temporary event.
Perfect.
The Board of Selectmen would have to change everything.
Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Good try.
Okay, perfect.
Is there anything else you'd like the public to know about this event?
No, it's something we've been doing for years. It's smaller now. It used to be open to more schools, but we've decided to cut it back a bit and only have 5 schools come to it. But it's nice for the community, and it's nice to give back to the running community, because we get hosted at all these other schools. So we just want to say, hey, come run with us too. And Abenaki is such a beautiful place to run that we'd like to take advantage of that. And we have cross-country trails already set up there.
Okay, great. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to give me public input for this temporary event? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Board members, are there any questions or concerns?
Fire. There's no need for the fire department to sign off on this? You have ambulance service in place?
I had an email with the captain of the police department, and he said he was fine with everything.
Yeah.
That's your call if people have a problem with that. We can make it contingent on getting his okay.
Yeah.
The motion, would that help?
Yep.
And
That's
we
the
do
motion I made.
We do have a map. Any other concerns? Okay. Does somebody want to give a motion?
Move to approve a temporary event permit for Kingswood High School to hold a high school cross-country meet on September 16, 2000. It's high school and middle school, correct?
High school and-
High school and middle school cross-country meet on September 16, 2024, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. at 390 Pine Hill Road, Abenaki Trails, contingent upon insurance, unless the insurance came in, and getting approval by the fire department. Permit number 2024-51.
Okay, I'll second that. Members, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thanks.
You have your permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Finally.
Oh, I already done it. I've had it, what, 3-4 times? Okay, next item on the agenda is the bulk vote. We have weekly manifest, July 26, 2024, $3,628,377.63. That includes a payment to the school district, August 2nd, $603,599.72. We have property tax refund and abatement, property tax exemption and credits, and we have 2 raffles, one from the Humane Society and one from the Village Players. Is there any item in this bulk vote that anybody wants to remove? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve a bulk vote, items A through D. Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Brad, second by Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have no appointments. First thing is new business. This is on the crosswalks. And we have had, the recommendation came to the Board of Selectmen on June 5th. On June 19th, the Board of Selectmen discussed the recommendations of the Ad hoc Sidewalk Committee. A sidewalk ordinance was drafted. We held a public hearing on July 10th. We held our second public hearing on July 24th. We have had the police department review and look at the area and are going to work with Taylor Homes in order to have enough signage so drivers know the crosswalk is coming up. Board of Selectmen, does anybody have any comments, questions?
We'll have one, Linda, do we need to place conditions that we want to see regarding signage and things like that at this time, or would they be, as we discussed them during the public hearings, that
We've held the public hearing, so
Yeah.
it would have to be part of this motion.
be part of this motion?
Madam
Okay.
Chairman, Brad, I didn't hear you.
Pardon me, I can't,
I didn't hear what Brad said.
he couldn't hear.
I was asking if we needed to include in the motion any contingencies regarding signage and things like that during the motion, or if they were already part of it, seeing as we discussed it during the public hearings. Your answer was, no, we need to make sure it's in the motion.
Madam Chairman,
Yes?
and I think it's a great idea that we're doing this. I just want to, and I'm not sure it goes into the motion, but this notion of in consultation with Wolfeboro Public Works Department, I just want to make sure we're clear, and I think we are, that no one from Taylor Home is going into a public thoroughfare to modify the public thoroughfare unless Public Works is on site watching that. I just want to make sure that's clear, and I think it is.
Yes, that was part of all our notices. We didn't have in the notices the consultation
Yeah.
with the police department. That's the only reason why I brought that up, but we can, if somebody wants to add both of those into the motion.
Yeah, I know we do this other places. I think we do it in Witten Neck. But this is a 30 mile an hour, could be whatever speed limit people choose. We did discuss earlier about sight line and signage, which I think Brad is referencing. Yeah, and I just want to make sure that Taylor Holmes, thank you for wanting to do this. It's a great idea. I just want to make sure Public Works is on site watching whatever gets done. So if that has to go in the motion, I'll put it in there.
I think the motion that is in our packet would be, and I'll just read it, not necessarily making it, to move to install a crosswalk at the entrance of the Taylor Drive to cross Bay Street, to install and maintain by Taylor Homes in consultation with the town of Wolfeboro's Public Works Department, and we had said, and our police department. So is that clear enough, or is there, or do we want to add, and that all, that we review signage? What did you want, Brad?
I would think that the signage be approved by Department of Public Works,
I agree.
and I kind of want to maybe identify the signage being, we're going to have one in each direction of the crosswalk,
I agree.
near where the crests of the knolls or hills are. And I also want to make sure we include the temporary vertical caution pedestrian and crosswalk signage that we have downtown that's sitting in the crosswalks. It's seasonal, and they can remove it at night or obviously during the winter season. But I think that's be a big traffic calming sign to have there.
And that's why I keep on adding the police department, because they have the line of sight information, and as I recall, they were going to go out and look at it. You're right, we have, it kind of comes up to a point, and I think the board, in all our discussions, were concerned that there was enough warning to the drivers that that was going to be in. So if, from what I read, and the police department, and signage agreed upon by the Public Works and Police Department, one in each direction notifying that a crosswalk is coming, and the pedestrian warning at the crosswalk itself.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. I guess I did make that. Okay, Dave. Is there any clarification or changes to that somebody'd like to make? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty.
And if we, I assume that if we do this and we find out that it needs to be adjusted, that we will revisit it, correct?
I think very definitely if we have incidents out there,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah, and we will have eyes on it between the Department of Public Works and the police.
Yeah, and I think we're hoping that the police will kind of in the beginning pay a little bit more attention to that area. I'm sure they will be more than willing to do that. Any other questions or concerns on that? All right, next item on the agenda, the 2023 audit report, Finance Director.
Good evening, Catherine Carpentier, Finance Director. I'm here to reintroduce you to Tim Green, our auditor, to go over the 2023 audit report that was received by the town on time, and I'm sure you're waiting to hear the results. And one last note is it will be posted on the town website tomorrow.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening. Again, I'm Tim Green, representing Robertson Green, here to present the audit for the year ended December 31st, 2023. It's a big report, as you've seen, so I'll try to be as brief as I can while not talking too fast, unless I try to hit a lot of points. First things first, I always point out that what you actually hire my audit firm to do is provide that first two-page report. This year's 3 pages. And that's our opinion on your financial statements. You hire an audit firm to disclose to the public whether or not you're fairly presenting your financial statements, and we are, pleased to present to you that you have fairly presented your financial statements for all of your opinion units. You have, all governments have multiple opinion units that you can do well with or not do well with. But again, for the town of Wolfeboro, you had a clean opinion, as we say in the industry.
Move the mic up.
All right.
There you go.
How's that? Also in this report this year, and it was the same as last year, there's an added note at the bottom that talks about how we did a separate compliance engagement as well. If any government spends over $750,000 in federal expenditures in 1 year, and that's adding all your programs up, you are subject to a single audit. The Office of Management and Budget for the federal government also said, though, when they released all the COVID money, that if those specific grants put you over that threshold, then you can hire an audit firm to do an alternative engagement, which is slightly reduced in scope and correspondingly slightly reduced in fee as well. So we've done that for the last couple of years for the town because without those ARPA funds, the town would not have met that threshold. Beyond the opinion letter, you can see that there's a management discussion analysis, and as I point out every year, this is drafted by the finance director. My only assistance is to make sure that the tables are prepared and the figures within that report correspond with your actual financial statements. Beyond that, I'm not adding any input to that because we're not giving you an audit opinion on it. We're just making sure that you're checking off the items that you're required to talk about while also fairly presenting the information within it. So any other questions beyond that I would direct you to your finance director. Jumping to the exhibits, Exhibit 1 and 2. This is basically an overall picture of the town. You have only 2 columns. You have governmental activities and you have business type activities. Your business type activities are your utilities, and your governmental activities are all other governmental and town funds. These statements are on full accrual basis, so it's more of like a private business in the sense that you are reporting your capital assets and your long-term liabilities, whereas when you do your annual operating budget, you do not factor those in other than capital outlays, proceeds from bonds, and so on. So you can see on page 14, the bottom of Exhibit 1, the total net position of the governmental activities was almost $41 million, and the total net position of the business type activities was almost $37 million. Your net position is broken down into categories. Net investment in capital assets is the bulk of it. That represents capital assets less any related long-term liabilities. You have restrictions for endowments and expendable trusts. You have other purposes, which generally are grant funds, which are restricted. The library fund is restricted. Any other funds that are restricted through RSAs or donor purposes and so forth. And then you're left with unrestricted net position. You can see that in the governmental activities, it's a deficit position, almost $7 million. That's actually a decrease from the year before, which was just over $8 million deficit. Within that unrestricted position, though, is your long-term liabilities that are not related to capital assets. So your pension liability, your OPEB liability, and those are significant and really don't match, if you will, with any sort of asset. So that's essentially why it throws the government into a negative net position for the unrestricted balance. Your business type activities is further broken down within your enterprise statements, which we'll get to starting on Exhibit 8. But I'll jump ahead now to Exhibit 3, which is your governmental funds. This is the modified accrual basis, so this goes back to current resources, current ins and outs of your governmental activity. You can see you had 2 major funds this year. You had the general fund and you have your capital projects fund. The town puts any project that's funded primarily, if you will, from bonds or donations and grants in this capital project fund because they typically last more than a year. This year, I believe it was a public safety building. That was the one that was half of it was borrowed so far. So you had bond proceeds as you ramped up that, at the beginning of 2023, you had ramped up that project. And you can see there's a big balance in investments representing unspent proceeds, essentially. And again, that was, you can see at the bottom of fund balance, that's the bulk of that restricted net position we talked about earlier. So you have $4 million of unspent bond proceeds, which, by law, are targeted for that project. So in the general fund, total assets was almost $18 million. Total liabilities, just over $10 million. You had deferred inflows of resources of about $1 million. Primarily, that is property taxes that haven't been collected by the end of February after the year is over, in which case accounting rules require you to defer it because it's not available to use for the previous year. And then you have your fund balances broken down into 5 categories. Non-spendable, which represents your inventory, your prepaid items, and your tax-deeded property that is held for resale. Your restricted balance, which in this case represents, as I said, grants that may be available but not used yet. Your library fund gets combined into the general fund for reporting purposes. You have a committed fund balance, which represents your expendable trust funds, which again are reported within the general fund in accordance with accounting standards. You have a assigned fund balance, which are encumbrances dictated by departments or the board. And then you have your unassigned fund balance, which is 2.3 million. And if you were to recall from last year, that was a deficit of almost 300,000. And as we discussed, and this will show up a few more times in this report, last year the Pop Whalen project was intended to be funded by about 2.7 million in donations, which were not received during 2022, and therefore were not, it would not have been appropriate to record that revenue. So crossing the years, you had most of your expenditures in 2022, and then you had a big chunk of that revenue source coming in 2023, which brought you right back up to where you intended to be at the end of 2022. In comparison, I just jotted down a couple figures from previous years. 21, the unassigned fund balance was 3.8 million. In 2020, it was 3.9, and in 2019, it was 3.4. Obviously, 2020 and 2021 also had other factors, so we don't know in comparison, how those relate or not, but that's why I went back to 2019 at least to see what that baseline was. There's a subtotal column for other governmental funds, which are broken down in supplemental schedules in the back. These are non-major funds. The determination for major and non-major is quantitatively determined, so it's basically 10% of your town-wide total assets, total liabilities, total revenues, total expenditures. So Wolfeboro, typically, because your capital projects tends to be large, your general fund is large, you do not report too many other major funds based on those reasons. Exhibits 4 and also Exhibit 6, those two exhibits are essentially a crosswalk between full accrual basis of accounting and modified accrual basis of accounting. So you can see how you go from a fund balance on a modified accrual basis of about 12 million on the top of Exhibit 4, what additional items are included to get you to your total net position on the governmental activities of almost 41 million. Obviously, $61 million of net capital assets and $33 million of various long-term liabilities, all of which are broken down within the notes to the financial statements as well. Exhibit 5, this is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Here you can see the general fund had a net increase in fund balance of almost $2 million, whereas the capital project had a net increase, of course, of 3.5 million. You could see other financing sources in the capital projects fund. You had total $7 million. That's broken down between the debt and the premium on that you received. Bond premium is amortized on the full accrual basis over the life of the loan. So on the full accrual basis, you report a net interest expense based on the allocation of that amortization of that premium, whereas on the budgetary basis, you just budget that debt payment every year. Exhibit 7 is a budgetary basis schedule and also a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. There are 2 budget columns, original and final. If the town receives unanticipated state aid, for example, and expends it, that essentially is above and beyond the budget, so you gross up the budget, if you will. So that's primarily the reason of the changes in your budget. Same thing with unanticipated donation revenue or other sources such as that. And those only are reported when you expend it, so budget always goes up equal on both sides from your approved budget at town meeting. So the third column is the actual column. So you can see on the budgetary basis, total revenues was 22.7 million. Total expenditures was 18.5 million, leaving you with an excess of revenues over expenditures of just over 4 million. Other financing sources, you had some transfers in and you had more transfers out, so you had a net other financing sources and uses of about 1.2 million decrease, leaving you with a net change in fund balance of almost 3 million. You had some increases in fund balance classifications, so if one fund balance item goes up, your unassigned goes down, and the opposite. So you had an increase in non-spendable fund balance, just over almost 12,000, and an increase in restricted fund balance of 165,000. So with those three figures, you can see your unassigned fund balance started at about 300,000. This is on the budgetary basis, and you ended with just over 3 million. So exhibits 8, 9, and 10, these are your proprietary funds. These are your utilities: water, electric, sewer, and Pop Whalen Ice Arena. On exhibit 8, total net position, you can see again, this total column of almost 37 million is broken down. The water department ended the year with about 11.5 million. The electric department ended the year about 12.4. The sewer department, 12.6. And then the Pop Whalen had a total net position of almost 400,000. Of those net positions, it's broken down just like that first exhibit between your net investment of capital assets, which always is the bulk of the balance, and then your unrestricted. The sewer department does have a small restricted, which represents some interest earned on bond proceeds, which by law cannot be used for any other purpose. So when the town determines their need or lack, or whether or not they have to reappropriate the interest for that project or not, it will eventually be used, I'm assuming. Exhibit 9 is an operating statement for the proprietary funds. You can see the third line from the bottom. You had a change in net position. Water department increased by about $1 million. Electric department increased by just over 500,000. Sewer department increased by about 900,000, and the Pop Whalen fund had a decrease of about 150,000. And exhibit 10 is a cash flow statement. This is, again, shows you where you are. Cash flows from operating activities. Water and electric had positive cash flows for operating activities, whereas sewer and Pop Whalen had negative cash flows. Sewer department does get an infusion of funds from the general fund. And then you had cash flows for capital-related items. This shows you where, because you're capitalizing all your capital asset, all your capital outlay activity, this cash flow statement does show you what went out the door, essentially for cash flows, as well as what comes in for bonds. You can see the sewer department issued $1 million in bonds. You had proceeds from federal and state grants of almost $1 million in total across the board. There's a revolving loan program going on right now, which will be ultimately transferred into a full long-term debt. But as a funding source, you're making draws from the state revolving loan fund. And also you paid almost about $2 million in principal and interest on your debt. So you can see that right in the middle of the statement, your increase and decrease in cash during the year. The water department cash balance increased by a little over 100,000. Electric department decreased by about 450,000. Sewer increased by about 260, and Pop Whalen decreased by about 250. The bottom is a reconciliation between your operating statement and your cash flow statement. And the final exhibits on your basic financial statements, exhibits 11 and 12, these are fiduciary funds. These represent private purpose trust and custodial activity. These are primarily held by the trustees of trust funds on behalf of others and do not benefit the town as a whole. So your custodial fund, for example, represents school district funds, capital reserve funds that are the school district raised and appropriated. I won't go through the notes other than with answering any questions. And I'll just point out, you have required supplementary information schedules starting on exhibit 13 on page 54. This is basically a 10-year schedule of your pension figures, as well as your OPEB figures. You have not reported OPEB for 10 years, so you do not have 10 years of activity showing, but when you do, that's when you'll cut it off, and it'll just be a revolving 10-year schedule, as required by accounting standards. And then your last exhibits are supplementary in nature, but they do tend to provide pretty useful information. Like I said, you have a combining schedule of all those non-major funds, and you have a detailed general fund schedule, which further breaks down by function and department where you were based on your estimated revenues and based on your appropriations. The final exhibit, Exhibit 21, on page 64 is a budgetary change in your unassigned fund balance. Again, as we talked about at the start of the year, of an unassigned fund balance of $300,000, you appropriated all that. You had a revenue surplus of almost $3 million, representing primarily those contributions and donations that came in 2023 to match a 2022 appropriation. Then you also had unexpended balance of the appropriations of almost $200,000, leaving you with a budget surplus of $3,183,000. Again, those changes in your non-spendable and restricted fund balance decreased your unassigned, and you can see that you ended the year with an unassigned fund balance on your budgetary basis, which is your tax rate basis, of just over $3 million. And in comparison to the last, I'd say 6 years, prior to last year, which was the $300,000, 2021, you were at $4.2 million. 2020, you were at 4.7. 2019, you were at 4 million. In 2018, you were at 2.7 million. Beyond that, I put in a letter to management to discuss any findings or deficiencies we may have found. We had no material weaknesses that we felt we need to report. And as you've probably read, we noted that the lease with the restaurant, Dockside Restaurant, had been the same balance for the last few years, which in reviewing the agreement had not been adjusted annually as was required. So I pointed that out, and I believe it was addressed the moment I pointed it out. So the last report is, again, this is our alternative compliance examination, where we looked at your COVID, the ARPA grants that you expended. You have various small programs that fall under the same grant. And we did not, we tested for appropriate activity, basically in accordance with what's called the compliance supplement. And we did not have anything to report regarding that examination as well. Having said all that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Anybody?
I'm good.
So would you just clear up one item for us? As you recall, we were in communications last winter about having to utilize funds from the municipal electric department because of a potential deficit. We never had to utilize any of those funds because we kept the general fund in play and we never had to do any transfers, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, me. Anybody? So thank you for this, and thanks for always hard work. I asked Jim the other day for some help. Last year at our budget committee, the name is not important. If anybody wants to look at the videotape, they can do that. But there was an assumption made by somebody that if an enterprise fund is upside down, its operating performance has brackets around it, that somehow we could roll that as a deficit. Can we roll things as deficits?
Yeah, the activity in any of your proprietary funds stays in the proprietary fund. Yeah, you can carry a deficit. You just will, if it looks like it's just circling, obviously we're just going to start pointing it out and being a little more like,
But you don't see that happening in the town of Wolfeboro, do you?
I don't, not for the Pop Whalen being the one that's showing the deficit as far as unrestricted fund net position. It has been having a decrease in net position year over year. This year was the first big leap from what has been occurring. And looking, and I think your finance department could give you further detail, but even in looking at some of the activity, you had an increase. You had basically your electric and propane doubled, your salaries and wages almost doubled. So there were a lot of added costs, and I know your income went up as well. And on this Exhibit 9, you can see charges for services was $320,000, and the actual cost of operations $370,000. Now, when you're talking about your deficit position, because you, since 2021, have been recording health insurance expense within that fund, you're also recording the OPEB liability within that fund. Now, as I kind of mentioned before, there is no offset asset with your OPEB liability. So even putting that on the books, which was almost $90,000, and it's roughly stayed around that level, up and down a little bit every year, that puts you also in that hole.
But just because I want to make sure, at least in my mind, we're clear. The way I have read this is what we do is if we have a operating loss, we go over to the balance sheet and top it off, don't we? Don't we go to our unrestricted fund balance and pull monies over there to pay the bills?
No.
So where do we get the money to top off the loss?
You have to change your rates, essentially. That'd be the grand scheme of things.
But where do we get the money to top off the loss in 2023?
Which loss?
Pick one, sewer department or Pop Whalen.
Yes, there is a due to the general fund for cash flow purposes.
You would go to the general fund and you would take the money from the general fund to top that off.
Right.
On a go-forward basis, the question is, you have to raise revenues or reduce costs, one or the other.
Right.
Right? Okay. So that, so it strikes me, and I just want to make sure we're clear, because I heard it, a couple of times that we're carrying a deficit, and I never thought we did that. And we're not doing that.
The overall fund is not in a deficit position.
Got it.
Because
Okay,
you own assets and you have, debt.
That makes me feel good. So the next question is going to be, what people want to ask, and this is why I asked Jim and Casey to kind of focus on Exhibit 9. When, a member of the public says, how are we doing on our enterprise funds? What was the revenue? What was the costs? What's the bottom line? Is that chart 9? Is that?
I think 9 is the clearest because it differentiates between the operating activity and then the other items that.
And it doesn't mess around with the cash flows and the depreciation and all that kind of stuff. So if somebody wants to really understand how our funds are performing, the enterprise funds, you go to chart 9.
But in 9, we do have depreciation.
So, yeah, so there's,
So kinda.
well, with every financial statement, there's some extrapolation that is required, right? So
Right.
your depreciation expense
It's non-cash.
shows up under operating expenditures. However, think back to where I talked about you have a net investment in capital asset position. As your depreciation expense goes up, that net investment goes down because your capital assets net your depreciation. So any change in net position classification comes out of the unrestricted classification. So if your net investment goes down, your unrestricted goes up. So basically, even though you're reporting depreciation expense without really budgeting for it, your unrestricted balance is going to go up by the same amount. So you're going to end up where you start in accordance with
Kind
depreciation
of
expense.
washes out.
It does wash out.
Yeah,
Interest expense does not, however, wash out.
correct.
So with your cost of operations plus your interest expense, those are basically the two expense side factors, and then you have your charges for services on the revenue side.
Got it. Okay, well, Tim, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
So we can go back in previous years and look at the operating income loss for this year and compare it to past years for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
How are we? Do you know?
I do. So the last 22 and 21 were around $40,000, $45,000 losses.
Yep.
And this is without factoring in depreciation, because the depreciation does show up in that
Non-cash,
loss figure. So
Yep.
you actually, if you back out depreciation, you might be in, again, I'd have to look at the interest expense as
Yep.
well. So, but just in comparison, that third from the bottom line, In 2022, $46,000 loss, 2021, $42,000, 2020, $27,000, and 2019 was $27,000 as well.
And this year?
So this year's $150,000.
And if I could, and it could be a little misleading because we dropped $6 million of capital on a facility. So it could pose up the analysis. Casey has a dashboard that she tracks for me, and I'll be glad to publish it. It does the same thing you're asking for. Is funds, costs, year over year, compare over time. Yeah. So we've made progress. To answer maybe Brian's question, we've made progress in water, substantial progress. For every $2 of revenue, we're generating about 50 cents of surplus, which is not bad. We've made, and Barry does great all the time. You give him $10 and he generates, a healthy return, which funds his thing. So sewer and POP are the places we got to, maybe pay attention to in the going forward year.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Yep, thank you. And one last one. In the POP, that 323 of revenue on, and I'm sorry to do this, that 323 of revenue includes, is it 104, Casey? It includes 104 coming in from the town to prepay for town ice time? Is it whatever the number is?
I think we're not prepaying for anything. We're just like a vendor buying the
So we
ice
buy
time.
$100,000 worth of ice time.
Just
There's
like
no
any
offsetting
other group.
expense, so it's good money that comes across to the POP. So that generates, that in addition to another $223,000 of revenue, generated the 323 that's on the audit report.
Right.
Okay, good.
I do want to say one thing about Seward. We also handle the transfer from general fund to sewer to pay for their debt differently in the audit report. So we include it as good income from general fund to sewer fund because that is what the board has agreed to do.
So just for my clarity, the debt that's held for the sewer department is held by the town at large, not just the ratepayers, but everyone in the town pays for the sewer department debt.
Technically, they're all general obligation bonds.
They're general obligation
So if any of
bonds.
these businesses were to go upside down, they'd all be on the backs of the taxpayers.
They'd be on the back of the taxpayers.
However, water is paying for covering theirs.
They're
electric's
shouldering-
paying for theirs. Sewer is not covering theirs at the decision of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, and 82% of the debt that is out to the POP Wayland is shouldered by the general taxation.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. It wasn't the decision of the Board of Selectmen. It was a decision of the taxpayers to do it in that matter. So we went out and got that okay. The other thing I want to point out with that ice time that we're buying, right now we don't charge the town for putting any of their park and rec programs in that facility. So in the summer, we're using it and not getting any revenue, even though it's for a town program. So it may be another place that we'll want to take a look at having some revenue from Park and Rec for that enterprise fund. And that's the same thing with the split on the bond with the Pop Whalen. It was a vote of the citizens and that made the split that we're doing right now. It's not something we as
Yeah,
a
and
board
just-
just said, hey, that sounded good.
Just for clarity, I'm not questioning the allocation, I'm not questioning any of that
I
stuff.
just wanted clarity. From
Yeah,
the public.
I'm trying to get clarity too, so that the folks out there know what's going on. That's all. That's simple. And for us, I think, at least for me, if somebody were to say, take this report and tell me where you want to hunt for opportunities, well, there's two that jump off the page that we might want to have conversations about next year in terms of raising revenues
Very
in
definite.
certain areas. I mean, that to us is, to me at least, that's good things to think about. Okay, thank you.
Any other selectmen have any questions? Okay.
Can I just?
Sure, come right ahead.
First of all, thank you, Tim. I know you're driving all over this state to get here, and I appreciate it. So I just wanted to also put a little more information to the town manager. Not only did we not use the electric fund, if you look on Exhibit 21, based on your recommendations for everyone to tighten up and not spend, we returned $198,000 of unexpended appropriations that were voted on. So not only did we not need the $175 we asked to use, we returned $198,000. And secondly, I'm sorry for speaking about the sewer. I assumed it was board, but it was before my time, so.
No problem, I just want to be clear.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Is there any other questions? Thank you very much for
you.
your report and getting it to us on time. That's important.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the 2024 Annual Exempt Properties Assessing Department. And
That was about 1:30.
Jim, do you want to do this, or do you want us to
So-
just kind of talk?
So there's been some conversation about this over the past several weeks, and the assessor has put together a memo to you outlining what the rules and regulations are under RSA 72 regarding granting exempt status to locations within the community. These boil down to properties of nonprofits. There's a list of several of them in here. Basically looking for you to endorse this, vote for it going forward so that we can honor the exemption for these properties.
Board members, I don't know if we want to go through and point out some of the ones that are going to be denied, or whether we just want to make a motion to accept it. My feeling was that we should probably look at some of the ones that are going to have some being denied. Some of it has to do with they didn't get the paperwork in, or they need to file under another statute, RSA. Huh? We can put it in the minutes, or we can point out. I'm asking how the board would like to do it.
I have 3 that I wouldn't mind discussing.
Okay?
Let's start with 1, and that's the Hospital Community Aid Association. And that one, it seems clear. Todd has said that he consulted with town council on this, and he's in agreement that it doesn't meet the 4-point test the New Hampshire Supreme Court suggests in Elder Care versus Ebsen decision, because the mission does not appear to be obligatory. Consequently, it should not be exempt. So that seems pretty clear. One that I see that maybe we allow one more year is the New Hampshire Boat Museum. It says that they've been receiving an exempt status for many years, fulfilling their charitable mission to educate people and to preserve and share the boating heritage within the general public. However, right now, the Boat Museum is closed to the general public. You can tour the facility if you call and make an appointment, and they are still running programs, the boat building and the things like that, but those aren't run in the building. They're run on other premises. So I don't mind giving them 1 year, because they said that they have a heavy lift this year because they're trying to get their Wolfeboro facility up and running.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think we should watch, going forward. If it ends up just being a satellite storage unit, something that the general public can't visit, then it doesn't follow its mission purpose. Unless we can.
Or part of the property doesn't. If they're doing all the education on other parts of it, they
yeah.
are. I think you're just talking about the building itself.
building.
They're still active on the other part. And I think we see that on a lot of these,
Yeah.
where part of the parcel, they're doing the mission, and then they have other parts of the property.
And depending on if it's separate pieces of land or one piece of land, then certain pieces of land can be exempt and other certain pieces
Right.
can't. So we're going to have to look at that going forward. But, and the last one is the Wright Museum Foundation. And it seems like it was acquired by the museum. It's on Trotting Track Road. No, it's 77 Center Street. This museum building and land has been exempt in past years. The other property they are seeking to exempt is the Trotting Track Road. This property was acquired by the museum in 2020. It consists of a 40 by 102 service garage and 33 acres of land. It should be exempt to store and maintain exhibits, but they didn't file their paperwork in time. That's a whoops. I wish he had written on that one what the actual tax dollar value was.
Well, I don't think we're talking about tax. I think we're denying them because they didn't file within the right category, or they don't meet what is required to
Yeah.
get the exemption. And I'll go Sewellwood Conservation Area, 179.05 acres. The reason that is being denied is that it should be assessed under RSA 79.2, current use, for open space land, and a bunch of these things coming down. And the reason we're doing it, because there was a case in Ossipee that went to
Yes.
court, which is making the assessor go back and take a closer look at all these properties. And most of them are fine, but there's some that just didn't get the, under the right part. They should go under a 79A, current use, instead of being tax exempt under their nonprofit.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is Trotting Track Road the right address, Dan? Is Trotting Track Road the right address for the storage facility? It is, it's not the one behind the old cells? It is Trotting Track? Okay. Because I remember that. Okay, I got it. All right, thank you. Just wanted to make sure we have the record straight. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wants to point out one that they're concerned about or have a question with?
How about the Taylor community property?
What about it?
It's again, we got a thing is that they have denied 145-1-4, 40 acres of vacant land, which does not qualify for this. And we're back needing to go under RSA 79-A, current use. I think it's clear that we are giving them the process so they can next year.
Yep.
You know, and I think we have done others that we worked with before that were caught.
So I think the only one I think I heard was let's have one more year with the boat museum. Is that the one you
Yeah.
had?
See how
Let's go okay now, one more year with the boat museum. Is that kind of where you're at?
Well, I would like to have it clarified, if it's one lot, and the only thing is the building's closed, they're still running classes and doing other things
Yeah.
on the lot, does that, we need to ask them the question about the building.
Because they do, that's a good point, because I don't know whether they do it or not, but every year, despite that the building may be open or closed, they're building boats out there.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean,
So
there's still-
that could, we probably want to ask that question.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a valid question,
Yep.
but it's just because the building isn't open doesn't mean they aren't
Yeah.
on the
And they
piece of
do,
property.
they do their model building, but the model building is now being done in Wolfeboro, I
Well, that's
believe.
the one I meant, so.
I think some of them have been
just
done
ask.
here, but we have to find
Find
that
that
out.
out.
You know,
Yeah.
I know they're doing their sailing classes and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And hopefully they get more horsepower, get more staff, and they keep both facilities operating the way,
Yep.
they have.
So am I clear that we want to make a motion to attach this to the minutes?
Second.
You guys are just great tonight. Does anybody have any further discussion? Any concerns?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Can I move the household hazardous waste up? We've got people.
Linda, one housekeeping issue. I think I misunderstood you.
Jim?
You motioned to attach this to the minutes, but you still have to motion whether or not to approve the 2024 annual exempt properties or not.
Good catch. Who makes that motion?
I think I did.
Oh, I think Paul did, and Dave seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thanks, Jim.
You have the document for us to sign back there, Jim? We'll sign it later. Thank you.
Can we move the household hazardous waste discussion up and let some people get out of here before we get into our discussion on the Libby?
Yep.
Anybody have any issue with that? Okay, we'll do that.
So Sarah came to see me last week as the coordinator of the Lakes Region Household Hazardous Waste Facility, wanting to get on the agenda to discuss the proposal for a building at that location on Beach Pond Road. This has been in the works for a number of years. In the conversation with Sarah, we were both in agreement that, okay, we have to get a building permit put together. We need to have stamped plans for this. And she's here with the Alton Town Administrator to present what they'd like to do. And I really think it's probably pretty prudent, if possible, next week to be able to schedule a site visit up there to discuss what's going on and the path forward so that we all get onto the same page. With that said, I hand it over to Sarah.
Can I ask a question of Jim?
Yep.
Do we need, I'm new to this, do we need some kind of a lease document, something that, because
Good
it's our
question, Paul.
property?
So we do have an intermunicipal agreement with,
And that constitutes the lease document?
I believe it does.
Okay, because I've seen a
intermunicipal-
reference to an intermunicipal agreement, so that's covered off. Check that box.
I've got to review it. Amy pulled the file for me Monday. I haven't had time to dive into it. I have the full file. But I do have the intermunicipal agreement, which was signed in 2022.
And Sarah will probably answer this better than anybody, but the assumption is whatever gets built is DES compliant.
Well, let's let her do it.
So if you wouldn't mind just addressing that, thank you.
Okay.
If I could have a few minutes to explain it first, then I think your answers
That would be
would
wonderful. Thank you.
self-explanatory. I'm Sarah Silk. I'm the site coordinator, 35 years of household hazardous waste. This was built in 2002. Ryan Heath is here with me. He is a town administrator in Alton. He is the chair of the Lakes Region Household Hazardous Product Facility Joint Board. There is a drawing that I put in your packets because I suspected that most of you are not familiar with the site. This is the site as it was shown in 2002. It's 40 feet by 42 feet fenced-in area. It has 9 gates. So when we go to put a roof on it, that has some special considerations. If you look at the drawing, you will see arrows going from the right side to the left side. That's where the traffic goes through. And then the rest of that enclosed area is used for consolidating into open drums and gaylords and all. It's a very busy site when it's busy. We have open drums, and we have always planned to put a roof over there because we are open rain or shine. Obviously, shine is a lot more fun. So we started back, and I say we, Dave Ford, we started back 2014 looking at how to possibly put a cover over that, and it was just a roof. It's not a closed-in structure. We don't have running water, so we can't take, do a building that would require any kind of fire suppression. For the fire department, we don't want to have to worry about fumes. We know we have a very good breeze down there, a roof, we're fine. We don't need fans and walls or anything like that. Very simple, just a roof. We started out looking at metal roofing, which became extraordinarily expensive. CR Development gave us some information back in 2020. Dutton and Garfield gave us plans in 2020. Quantum Construction Consultants in 2021. Olympia Steel in 2021. Seacoast Crane gave us one in 2021, and it went up over $20,000 in a year because of the COVID artificial raise in prices for anything to do with construction. Triple Construction gave us plans, et cetera, in '23. Tim McDonald, we requested, and he ended up not giving us any kind of an estimate for the job. We also, in 2024, worked with Eastway Contracting, and most recently, Matthew Ryan, and it is a much reduced plan. It will be shingled roof. It will not be metal roof, and Ryan can give you some more details on that because he's been working with Matthew Ryan. We also talked with Lakes Region Planning Commission whether we could get any USDA grant money in 2023. And back in the day, we talked with Dave Ford about ARPA funds, but we didn't meet the criteria for that. So what we're working on now is we have been able, and these estimates went as high as $132,815. And because of a gross change in materials used, and we've reduced it, instead of having any type of a shelter for the survey taker, we've reduced it to be just over the fenced-in area. So we've been able to get an estimate and took a vote at our last joint board meeting to not to exceed $62,000. And I think the answer to one of your questions is, since 2002, we are in our third 10-year agreement with the town of Alton, and the agreement was basically designed through the use of grant money through the Regional Planning Commission. And it's only 11 pages. It very clearly states, and Jim should have a copy of it. I can see about sending electronic copies again if need be. It very clearly details, excuse me, that Wolfeboro owns a facility, but then it's a joint deal, and it has all kinds of provisions in there that it could keep running if Wolfeboro withdrew with 120 days notice, and how other members can withdraw. And like Jim, I think Jim, you were the one that said that the latest agreement was signed, I believe it's 2022.
Correct, July 20th, I have it right in front of me. July 20th, 2022.
So when it was originally constructed, it was done by Wright Pierce, probably the one time they did a great job. And
Best friends, aren't they?
Right, they're a bit, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and if you look at your little drawing, the little orange dots indicates that that will be where we will remove the fencing and the fence posts, and that will be support posts, and Ryan can give you more details about that. Basically, it is no larger, it's only a roof, and except for a little overhang, it's no larger than the size of the facility. I'm not certain, I think, Mr. O'Brien, you've perhaps been to household hazardous waste? Yes, have you, Mr. Duchesne's?
Have I been there?
Yeah,
Maybe in '22.
okay. So I'm not sure how many of you are really familiar
I'm
with
a
it.
frequent visitor.
I'm sorry?
I'm a frequent flyer when it comes.
Yeah, well, we have frequent, we have once a month, third Saturday of the month, 6 months of the year, and we have ability to take small quantity generators, and we have the ability to take people that are not members. Members are Alton and Wolfeboro. And Department of Environmental Services, I get calls every week, people they have forwarded to us, because most towns do it once a year, and it's not reasonable to expect that everybody can go. So we provide a lot of services. Anyone from away self-supporting, they pay for their services. So we want to continue to provide those good services to Alton, Wolfeboro, and anybody else that needs them in small quantity generators. And The facility is on town property. I have already stopped in and seen our Jason Durant's and gotten a building permit, which I gave to Ryan, and he's forwarding that to Matt, just so we could get started. I wanted to find out which type of permit we needed. It's commercial, and I was told we did not need any kind of site plan review. But having spent a good number of years sitting where you fellows and ladies is sitting, we always like to set a good example when we do a town project by following all the regulations, and we intend to do that. And as in the agreement, Jim would sign the contract as he signs the grant request from Department of Environmental Services as well. And we're looking at an opportunity. We cannot have that site worked on to the extent that we need it until after October. We usually have anywhere from 40 some odd up to 80 some odd households. The last collection, which is the third Saturday in October, we had over 130, I think it was almost 140 households come. It's our busiest day of the year, whether it's rain or shine. So we cannot have that place torn apart. Last year we had shingling done during, the 3 weeks we weren't open. This year we had the buildings repaired, and we ended up having to have them jacked up and had carpenter ants and had some work we had to do there because it hadn't been constructed with pressure-treated lumber. We have taken care of that problem for the future. So we are able to get the contractor in October after we close. So we've been working on it for years. We have money set aside. We're just waiting to get the final paperwork, and Ryan can probably give you some more information about that. And we just need to get the Board of Selectmen to give us a blessing to move forward.
Board members, anybody have any concerns?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I got one, Sarah, you talked about it on your topic number 4 there about the pump station sitting up there that we have sitting there.
Yes.
Is that going to be in the way? Is there enough room for you to work around that?
It's in the way now. We
Okay.
can't open our emergency gate full, and the gate where people drive in, we have to bungee the gate to the door handle there. Last October, I got an email that said that was going to be put there, and I did go down and visit Mr. Randall and asked him to accompany me to the site. He did not care to do that, and then 2 days later, I got there, and my gate wouldn't open all the way. That's our emergency gate. If you look at the picture, you can see the little square building. It says Swap Shop. That gate there will not open. It's a 6-foot gate. It will not open entirely. And at the very top, those 2 gates, there's a little arrow in the inside. The top gate opens in, and it's clipped to the fence so it doesn't bang the cars. The lower gate, which should be on your left-hand side as you drove through, is the one that opens up only perpendicular to the line of travel. It no longer goes all the way to the fence, which is where the back of the office is. And it was temporary, and I believed it was going to be there just for the winter, and I have inquired, and the last time I inquired, I was told that it was unspecified date because the project hadn't started yet.
Right. Yep.
Sarah, what we have here is not an engineered plan. When do you plan to get
No,
it?
this was just a plan to acquaint people with the site.
Yeah, I'm saying, when do you see us getting an engineered plan?
Certainly. Again, my name is Ryan Heath. I'm the town administrator in Alton. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I just want to clarify the scope of work and the project, and I think it'll answer a lot of your questions. So what we're talking about here and where we've come up with a project that's feasible cost-wise is it's an engineered roof system. What we're going to be doing is a complete engineered truss system. There's no structure involved other than what is being engineered by the manufacturer to carry the snow load, but they're also engineering a clear span. The clear span is going to run the existing footprint. So what you have in front of you is basically the existing conditions over there, the footprint of the hazardous waste facility. We're planning to put a roof structure with open sides, clear spanning all the way across it. The manufacturer, when they engineer the truss system, will also have stamped plans with regards to carrying the load down the left and right side of the length of the pad. What Sarah was referring to when they said they were going to take out some of the fence components, because where some of those fence posts are going to be the spanned 8x8 posts. They're going to carry that timber beam that's going to carry the load from all of the trusses. So the whole entire design is going to be coming through the manufacturer for the truss system. We will get plans that will be stamped, and that whole entire packet is planned on being turned into your building inspector along with the building permit. And then the posts obviously will sit down on some precast frost posts that are well below frost level.
Okay, so we're going to have a set of plans, and so then the other thing, once we get this set of plans, we also are going to go to the planning board, because that is the process is when we did, I thought I heard you say that, Sarah.
No, I was told by code enforcement I did not need to go for site plan review.
Well, I thought that the town generally takes all its projects, and even though we aren't required to go through planning, kind of just runs it through.
I don't know what to tell you because we don't have a town planner.
Well, that's
Who's got time?
our thing. I'm asking you,
Right, all I can say
if you get your packet of stuff,
Right.
are you willing to take that and go to the planning board? We'll worry about having everything put together.
I'm not adverse to that. It's just that I was instructed that I didn't need to do that.
Mr. Pinio?
So that's news to me. I mean, when we talked the other day, I told you I didn't know if this needed to go to planning or zoning, and that if
Right.
it did, we would go through that process, and you articulated, well, if it goes to zoning, I will step down.
Right.
It's been my practice since I've been here. Any projects that come forward, I do go to the planning board to articulate what's going on. Again, I think I've got to get into that file to see what is in there for history and what's been approved. And if this has to go to planning board, and Jason says it doesn't, I've got to have a conversation with him and get confirmation.
Yeah,
we'll go
I
next.
understand that we're getting
wants to go?
4 hours, 2 days a week
Correct.
for a planner. I'm not sure when that starts. I think she maybe started this week.
Oh, she's been here for a couple weeks, but she's
Okay.
already pretty busy. So, but I think this is something that we can push through.
Okay, I have no problem going, but it was just that I was told I didn't need to.
It just, when you said I wanted to follow planning, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Dave?
One question, or two probably. What is the pitch of this roof going to be? Do you know?
Right now, it's probably going to be looking in the area of a 612 or 712 pitch.
Okay. And which way are the trusses going? We will have two gable ends. Which will be the gable ends?
Gable end, short side as you go in. Trusses will
The rush job.
side
Okay.
carry through. Be
Really
vinyl.
important to do.
Sorry, I hope you can hear me.
Probably not.
It'll entail vinyl-sided gable ends and a solid soffit ceiling system underneath the trusses.
And the gate will be replaced. It just will no longer be on the post. The post will be removed because the support, the fence will be attached to the support.
Paul?
Sarah, thank you. So I just want to make sure I heard clearly, because I made a note to myself, no site plan review, and we normally do that. So I just want to go over a checklist of things that I think I heard. There'll be a stamped set of construction drawings by a contractor or an architect, right? That's clear. Roof, soffits, whatever we got to do. This document is 22 years old. Will there be a,
This was just to acquaint you with the site.
no, I understand,
Yes.
So will there be a plan that shows this structure on a parcel of land? A site plan?
No, the intention wouldn't be. I'm just trying to clarify, obviously, Alton does things differently than
Yeah,
Wolfeboro
yeah,
does.
yeah,
The reason there wasn't a lot of talk about a site plan or planning department is the site's not changing at all. This 22-year-old plan is still as it exists today.
Yeah,
We're covering the exact footprint.
okay.
So I guess I didn't quite understand the need for a site plan because we're not planning on altering the site from its existing conditions at all. Simply covering
Doesn't matter,
what is
you're
there.
changing
But
it.
absolutely, with that said, I agree with Sarah that we obviously have to set an example, and if we're going above and beyond to run through a process that Wolfeboro follows, so be it. My
Okay.
only concern would be with regards to the site and the situation is the time frame that we can only do this after the third week in October.
Yeah,
Got it.
So we got a window between the third week of October till snow flies
Right.
to get this thing done,
Okay.
covered and shingled. But with that said, we will work as diligently as we have to,
Okay.
getting those. I do already have some preliminary truss designs, so those have already been
so
in the works.
a package will go that way. But then the real question is, we got this small little pump station thing that's got to get picked up and moved. And so how does that get done? Is there funds available to do that, or are you asking the town to
Not
do it?
mine.
Not yours. So this is a ask of the town to spend money to move it. Is that an ask, move the pump station?
The town was going to take it and put it where it's designed to be anyway.
So this is an ask of the, I'm just clarifying, it's an ask of the town to move the pump station. Move the pump station, move those things. Is that correct?
It's a 30-foot-long metal building.
This is an ask of the town. I just want to, I'm not trying to get a yes or, yeah, I am. You're asking the town to evaluate the cost to pick up that pump station gear that's out there and move it. Is that right?
Well, I guess it would be their responsibility. It's their piece of
Okay.
equipment.
So we don't know what that's going to cost.
Well, they have some, I would imagine they have some information from how much it costs to drop it off.
I don't know. Do we know how much it costs to move the pump station?
I mean, it's going to cost us bringing in a crane, relocating it, and then relocating power, because it's my understanding that the building has to remain heated and the pumps need to be able to be turned on a regular basis.
Brad?
I can answer part of some of that there. I look back in the records there, the crane itself is about $2,600 to come up and do the lift for it. There has to be another platform built for it to set it on, which would probably run another couple $1,000s. And then we're going to, as Jim said, we're going to, where it gets set there, the power has to be run to it, everything. So you're going to be $5,000 plus to relocate that. I was going to make a comment too that when we did put it there, obviously it's outside the facility there, so it's on the town portion of the property that they utilize there and stuff. And if we knew at that time that something was going to be going on there, we might have, made room at that time to give enough elbow room for a project that you guys are going to do. But I didn't know anything about this back then. Now, this has been on your radar for a few years now and stuff, but, and also, we don't have the money in the budget anywhere to do this, so I don't know where we would find the funds for this either, to come up with that, so,
Am I correct that this got dropped off in 2023, and we thought we were going to have it out of there by now?
it was brought in, and I believe it was October, can't remember the exact time frame, somewhere in October of '23 of the fall.
And we thought we'd have it out.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's why I'm saying, I think there's, what we hoped would happen didn't happen. So and that was what I think Sarah was told that it was going to be moved
I
out
could
of there.
read the email to you.
Pardon me?
I can read the email to you.
Okay, I mean, that's the general understanding. I don't think we need to go. So we find ourselves now in a kind of a pickle because we are not ready to move the pump station, and we have another project that is ready to go. So that's what we're facing.
And I think this goes back to why it's important to have a site visit.
I didn't get it.
I think this goes back to one of the original points that I think we need to have a site visit to have a better understanding of what exactly is going on up there.
Right.
Because I've talked to Stara, I've talked to Steve, I've never been there, so I think it's important that we schedule a site visit sooner than later to keep this moving or develop a plan.
I think very definitely. And I think the other thing is happening, that when Dave Ford was here, he didn't use the site much at all. It wasn't a place that and I think we're expanding the use of that area. And I think it's that much more important for us to define exactly where the space is. And that we're clear that we get it solved now all along, that we don't get into this again. So I don't know
It's
what.
a lot more active now than it used to be, because not only do we have my little facility that's open when we're open, but we also have the brush facility there. But I have had a constant problem the last year of going in there and finding the gates unlocked, because there have been people going out back behind the brush facility and dumping fill constantly, and they don't close the gates and lock them.
Now, is
It becomes
yours,
very busy.
is your gate, and you come in the gate, do you have fencing around your area that's
I'm sorry, I
gate?
can't hear you.
Is your hazardous waste totally gated off
My,
facility?
all 9 of those gates are locked, and there's a lock out at the street.
Right, so when they come, when you say a gate's unlocked, are you talking about
At
the
the
one
street.
street? I just wanted to get that clarified.
Yeah.
So you're still locked up, but they are
Right.
vehicles coming in which you hadn't.
Right, but things have gone missing, and they've broken my Knox box out by the gate, which is going to cost me over $500 to replace.
Okay. Board, what would you like to do here? Do we go do a site visit and?
Yep.
And.
Yep.
And I think all of us go do that site visit and get an
Can you
understanding.
give me a list of who would attend, so we can see if we can get a date that will work for everyone?
Sure.
Would it be the Board of Selectmen attending?
I think it would be open to any member of the Board of Selectmen who would like to go.
And Jim?
It would be myself and Steve, Sarah. If Ryan would like to show up, he's more than welcome, and it would be open to the board and obviously the public. You know, I'm just looking at the schedule for next week. Right now, Wednesday after 10 a.m. and Friday are open for me.
I'll have to check my schedule, too. One day next week, but I think it's Tuesday, I have to be in ballot training, and
Do you have a comment?
sometimes I go to that up in Coldbrook when I'm away, but they're not giving it up there. But I think that's Tuesday, just from 10 to 12.
Yeah, Tuesday I'm not available, but
Tuesday or Friday
You can
works
do
for me.
Wednesday. Ryan says he can do Wednesday, so...
Wednesday
What time works? What time?
after 10 a.m.
11 o'clock Wednesday. How about that?
I have to check my calendar.
August
Mr.
14.
O'Brien, I'll let you know.
Right.
How about 10 or 11? Give her a choice.
10 or 11?
How about
Yeah.
that?
Get
Whichever
back to me.
works best for you.
Whatever works best for you,
Can I get
sir.
somebody to send me all the email addresses?
I will
You
will get it
You can
coordinated.
do that for the board, so that
Yeah.
I can, and
I'll get
I
it
have
coordinated.
Steve's, I have Ryan's. I have yours,
Yep.
but I don't have all the,
We just
oh, I
don't
have
So
Dave's.
let me know as soon as you can, Sarah, if that
I can
works for you.
Thank you.
send you an email when I get home tonight.
Does that work for you, Ryan? Steve? Perfect. So we'll tentatively schedule Wednesday at between 10 and 11, depending on what we hear back. We'll get it noticed.
Jim, can you get us a site plan?
I will see what I can find.
Because it would be nice to have a site plan there of the whole site, not just your site, but what the town owns there.
There's a whole set of drawings someplace in Mr. Ford's stuff.
Can we,
It would have been from, this one page is just one page out of an enormous report by Wright Pierce.
okay, that's what we need to
I
find.
don't have it all, but
I-
it's here.
I know, we need to find it, wherever it is, if we
Yep.
can, because it'd be nice to have that information, so we're looking at what was agreed on and what,
We'll see if we can get some documents together.
Thank you.
okay. Any other comments or concerns from the select board?
Nope.
Anything more from Sarah or,
No, as Ryan gets the information from Matt Ryan, then we'll proceed, and as soon as I get, clearer directions about the site plan, then we'll know where to go in the future.
correct?
But we've been 10 years trying to make this happen. We've been putting in money aside, and we thought we had enough money, and then COVID came, and so we just had to scale back.
Yep,
We were looking for something that would be permanent and not need lots of repairs, but, you do what you got to do. 45-year shingles, I don't think I'll have to worry about it again.
okay.
Thank
We'll
you
get
so
this
much.
with it.
And
Yeah,
thank you for letting us come tonight.
no
And
problem.
Thank you, Jim, for your assistance in getting it scheduled.
We'll get it moving. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, yep. Okay, next item on the agenda is update on the Libby. I don't know who wants to take this, either Paul
So
or
I
Jim.
can probably kick this off.
Ain't me.
Okay,
When we met at the last meeting, we discussed the Libby mold report. The Board of Selectmen made the decision to close the Libby Museum until we could get some remediation done. We have contacted 3 firms, and we've received response back from 1 to do the remediation. You had authorized me to spend up to $20,000. That remediation work, as estimated today, is just over $32,000 to do the work. I had sent you also some correspondence yesterday afternoon. And interestingly, one of the conversations that I was having with individuals regarding the Libby Museum and the report that was performed was the Libby Museum, when they did the testing for mold, they conducted testing in 5 locations, 5 locations within the building, and then a 6th location, which was outside of the building. If you look at those reports closely, interestingly enough, the mold outside in the environment down there is actually higher than the mold counts inside of the building. So we are going to be in a perpetual problem of mold regrowth within the Libby Museum because of the environment it's in and the fact that it probably does not get enough sun to drive the area out. So I guess at this point, it's up to the Board of Selectmen what you'd like to do regarding the mold remediation from the one estimate we've received to this point of $34,453.25. I can try to answer any questions you have.
board members, anybody have any comments? Paul?
I'll check to raise.
Go ahead, I'll let you go, Brad.
All right. Obviously, this came in higher than what we thought there, so my initial thought here is to, we need to remediate what we have there now. So I'm not making a motion or anything yet, but I think the board needs to, my opinion, we need to authorize the funds up to that amount we have If we get lucky and suddenly one of the other quotes comes in lower, then that's great. If not, we know we have enough to at least cover that one to remediate what we have there. I think we really need to look at the cause of this too and come up with the solution to stop it from, happening again, because it's gonna, if we don't correct the problem, it's just gonna keep coming back on us, and this will be in a perpetual cycle here. Which brings me to probably the discussion about that proposal we had received from Quantum there to look at all the issues with the building, come up with a price tag and a priority list of what it would cost to do these different aspects of repairs for the building, knowing that we have more information that we could supply to them with the study that we just had done with the lead and the mold there. There's obviously information that they would have that they don't have to go out and perform themselves, which was part of their proposal to us. So it could be either, money could be put, or that information could be put to use to come up with a solution there. So I'll put that out to start the conversation anyway, that I do believe we definitely need to remediate it. And I think we need to come up with a plan moving forward of how to keep it from coming back.
Anybody else? I guess, I'll stick my head out here. I question what good it does for us to clean the mold if we haven't addressed the issue of why it's happening. And so we'll clean it, we'll open it back up where we're almost to the middle of August. We'll open it to put it to bed for another winter for the mold to grow again. So I'm almost at the point of saying, keep it closed. Let's look at what needs to be done to address the moisture and then get it cleaned. I hate to spend money and then turn around and have to spend it again.
Yeah, I just think it'd be a waste of money when we could use that to, as you said, stop some of the problems that are happening, or some of the issues that we have that create the problem. I mean,
You want to go?
it's usually only going to be open for another 3 weeks,
Yep.
plus into the fall, a few weekends.
Yeah,
We're not going
August,
to gain enough
roughly
revenue
August.
to certainly offset what it's going to cost. And then we're going to have, as you said, we're going to have to do it over again.
And when we started this, one of the questions I said, what direction do we want to go in? And I think we need to set it
We
and
need
go.
more, we need more information.
Well, we got the report from Quantum.
Right.
Can I,
It gives us the way to go, and I'm at this point, we get that out, and that's, I think, how we do it.
Yeah.
But I am sure Brian will have something to say, and since Paul wants to wait
Go
until
ahead, Paul,
the
you
end.
go
I want to
first.
wait till the end, till
He
Brian
always- He
speaks.
always likes to clean up, so,
I'm doing batting cleanup.
Brian?
Well, that's why I read about all the mold, so everybody understood last time, and I thought we could probably leave the place open without anybody dying until the fall, and then we could work on getting some kind of ventilation system put in there to fix the moisture issue. As I said before, 4 inches of spray foam underneath the floor, that if you just take out any rotten timber that's underneath and put 4 inches of spray foam, you create a complete vapor barrier so that there's no more moisture coming up from underneath. Anybody who's lived in an old cruddy cabin around Lake Winnipesaukee over the last 50 years knows that an uninsulated cabin, if you throw an air conditioner in the window, it's still comfortable and dry in there. So we're not heating the building in the winter. We're air conditioning it just in the spring, summer, and fall to keep the moisture levels down so that you don't have a dew point issue and the building doesn't sweat and you don't get mold. Now, I hate to talk so much, but here we go. I had a house built in Wolfeboro 17 years ago. We put spray foam in the house. The house had a major issue with spray foam installed incorrectly. I had water dripping down from my rafters onto the floor of my attic. I ended up having to go through 3 attorneys, forensic examination of the entire structure, infrared testing of the entire structure, and managed to have a lawsuit where I won $125,000 to remediate mold and get my building envelope to maintain 60% and under humidity in the summer and 40% and under in the winter. I lived this life for 5 years. I'm not a building expert, but I did talk to the building experts in Westford, Mass. It's Advanced Building Systems, I think they are, Oak Ridge National Laboratories, and the Department of Energy when I was getting experts for my lawsuit. So I understand a little bit about mold, and that's why I said at the last meeting, we can wash this 100 times and it's just going to come back and we'll drop $30,000, $40,000 a year cleaning it. But there is a way, if we get the right type of engineer in who understands building envelopes, that he can make sure that it doesn't mold up every summer. It's not going to mold in the winter. You got 15, 20% humidity outside and you're not having any heat in the building. Without heat, you don't have a dew point on the outside structure of the building. You're not going to get condensation. You get condensation when you have a dew point. When you have a delta T difference between an outside and an inside building of more than 30 degrees is when you get condensation.
Well, I'll tell you from having summer houses that do get wet and high moisture in the winter when we have temperature fluctuations that we have now. And I can go and watch the water run on the inside of the windows. So we're going to have to fix it for more.
Is that your heated house or your unheated house?
Unheated house, a summer house. Got it. I know exactly what it's all about. I have one. All right? So your solution may work, but it has to work for the whole year. It's just not a summer solution. Okay, Paul. All yours.
So when I gave the presentation a few weeks ago, I pointed out that 40% of the maintenance money that is used on the building was for three purposes. One was to pay for the alarm system, which is $100 a month, $120. The second was to buy licenses, which was about another total $300-400. And the balance of those monies was to buy cleaning supplies. And if you go down there and you've met with the team, they're inside there, every week, washing the walls, washing the stuff. So I'm going to give them a big hoorah for having less mold inside the building than there is outside the building, because they've been in there busting their ass washing the building. So hoorah to the team. There's no drainage around the building. There's the parking lot points all of its water at the building. The trees on the back of the building have never been trimmed in the time that I've been around. There's this green stuff on the roof of the building. It was, by the way, the will says we're supposed to maintain the exotic. I guess there's exotic trees down there. I'm not being pejorative. So we haven't maintained the outside of the building. There's an apron that goes around the building, and in the presentation I gave, I pointed out that the apron is heaving. That's when ice comes up and it heaves. So the apron around the building is holding water. And, Brian, I think, is correct, and Linda is correct. If you put standing water against the building, it doesn't matter. It's going to create that M word. I'm not going to sit here and say that we should reopen the place, because I think that would be not smart. I do believe we need to mitigate, whatever the right words are, but I don't think that 30 grand's going to get it done. I think 30 grand just wipes the building clean, throws some whatever they throw on it, and next year we're going to look at ourselves and go, it's back. So I want a bigger answer personally as to what we do. And if we say, that's too hard, we can't get a bigger answer, then we have to have another conversation. So I'm in the position that says thank you for these recommendations, get some more, but somebody needs to come forward and say it's going to go away forever. It's not going to reoccur. And that would be the litmus test for me. And I think anything short of that is we're just going to keep throwing money at it. Yeah. And I think that's not a good model.
And I'll go on there. We knew all those problems were there. That was the renovations to the Libby Museum. And And that went out as it started, I think we started in 2018, and it finally went out, I think, on the warrant in 2022. So we, I think, understand, and I think the quantum report pointed out a number of things that we should do. I think we go to the business of fixing it. I don't think anybody will give us a guarantee that it'll never come back.
Well, we
But
wanna
I
get
think we
close to
want
having
to
one of
do
those,
is
right?
do the best job as we can.
No, I think that, you know, I'm probably turned up the contrast on this, but I think that throwing 35, 40,000 right now, we're assuring ourselves next year that it's coming back in the windows.
Oh, there's
So
no
I'm
question.
not really keen on that one. If somebody were to come forward and say, you got to do multiple things to the outside of the building, you got to do things on the structure of the building, you got to fix it, then we can listen to that, and we may find at that point, I'm being hypothetical here, we may find at that point that says, we can't afford it. And that's going to be a tough conversation, but we got to get to a point where we treat that building like we treat this building, like we treat other buildings. And that's kind of where I come out on it. Thank you.
I think one other thing that I really did not cover about the mold remediation, it's going to take them 14 working days.
That's all right.
It's going to take what, dear?
14 working
Yes.
days to do this,
At
which,
the end of the season.
you know, that's going to put us into September.
Right.
We're done.
If they can do it right away.
So I'm kind of somewhere between Brad and, I think I'm where Brad and Linda are.
I think also kind of my intent when I talked earlier about, you know, doing the remediation and stuff would be that we also get the solutions in front of us so it doesn't come back and have it, I don't want to say coincide, but happen almost immediately after, or as soon as we can after the remediation is done. Because even if we come up with a plan to engineer a plan that'll eliminate this coming back, or hopefully eliminate it coming back, the first step is going to need to be to remove the mold, existing mold that's there, before the workers are going to come in and start doing whatever job they would need to do. So that was kind of in my thought process, and it probably can't happen that fast, because this would probably have to, if it's, depending on what kind of money it is, it would probably have to go to a warrant article and be voted on in March and stuff. So I can see the delay there and wanting to hold off on the remediation part. The other concern about that I would have by holding off, you know, another season, another year is, you know, what are we doing to our exhibits in there? Should we consider getting them moved out and getting them into a, you know, getting them cleaned up, getting them into a climate control storage somewhere?
That's a possibility.
You know, it's
That's
just
not- we
another idea
talked
to think about. We have.
before.
Yeah.
I thought we had asked to get some of them out. We made
There
that-
is a small amount of artifacts which are relocated to a climate-controlled storage annually.
I think we have some big items in there that may not be so easy to move.
Is the Libby insulated at
I
all?
don't think I was
No.
finished talking.
Not insulated.
Not insulated at
Not at
all.
all. No. Anyways, Linda, you were going to finish?
Yeah, I was saying is that we have 300,000, and we should take a look at what we can do with that 300,000 in doing some of the repairs, and whether we can seal any of it, like Brian was saying, and we could clean it up, and then put together a multi-year plan of how we're going to move forward. At some point, we talked about, in that back area, we talked about when we got the smaller design, was that you'd put some kind of a structure out there that would hold the mechanicals, that would go down and hold up that wall. I know phasing costs more. Maybe that's the way we can afford it. So I would like to take a look at it. I think we should look at it in as many
need
ways
more
as we can. Paul?
Yeah, and Jim is exactly correct. The amount of storage space that is where artifacts are taken out of the building, and I made a statement that we aren't storing them, and in fact we are. So no tongue-in-cheek here, but we rent a 25-square-foot box, and we store 25 square feet worth of artifacts. That building is pretty big. There's big stuff in it. So I like the thought of saying, until we can figure out what to do, let's get stuff out of there. Now, that's going to run the bill up. Because the curator will tell you, will show you that there are some artifacts that are beyond the pale. I mean, they're hopeless. But there are some, that are not. Maybe we, and I think, Linda, you're right. Maybe we kind of go, what are the topics we got to deal with? Save what's left. That might be a topic. Get a systematic look at what it's going to take to restructure this building, seal it, remediate it. That's a topic. What's it going to take to do drainage? And by the way, we still have to fix the roof, right? It's still leaking into the building. We could seal it up, but that's soft. It's still fixed. We probably have little buckets of topics, and then we price them all out, and we may have to go to the voter and say, what do you want to do? What do you want to do in the face of other things that we have in front of us for the coming years?
I was hunting all day today to try to find what I did with that quantum report. Will you email it to us on the Libby?
The quantum report?
The proposal?
Yes,
The one Brad just got?
yes.
Okay.
I can't.
Did you put it in the safe place again?
I did. It's in one of those safe places, and I looked in all my files. Of course, I didn't bring everything to the lake house, so I finally got to the point of saying I'm going to ask for it than to try to put my hands on it. And when I have it electronically, it's easier to find.
You lose it.
What's strange is, I mean, my folks have an unheated garage. Dave, you have an unheated garage, right? Your garage is heated?
It is?
Brad, do you have a storage building on your property that's not heated?
I have a shed outside, yeah. That's it.
I've never seen in an unheated, uninsulated garage mold build up on everything so that it all rots and sweats and falls apart. So if the Libby has no insulation and no heat in the winter, you can't have, it's warm, moist air hitting a cold surface that is like a glass of water on a hot day, and you have a dew point issue and a delta T between the inside and the outside that causes the moisture. If this were the case, then every unheated garage in the state of New Hampshire would have mold building up on it and would be falling apart. This is not the case with an unheated building. So that's why I believe if we take care of it in the spring, summer, and the fall, if it's 30 degrees outside, you walk into an unheated, insulated building in the winter, what temperature is it in the building? 35?
When the temperature outside gets to about 70 and the temperature inside is 30, when we get those crazy days, the inside of the building sweats like crazy and you have water running down. So it does happen.
Yeah.
So, we should look at the whole year and not just say, I'm going to focus just on this year, because it does happen the other time of the year.
I don't think there'd be enough change in fluctuation and temperature issues in the winter that would cause a heavy moisture and mold issue in the building. I just
Definitely
don't
would
believe
have a moisture issue, and that does happen. So we should look at the whole thing.
I think if we, my personal opinion, if we take care of it from April until November, April and until October, end of November. If you just have an air conditioning system that dehumidifies during those months of the year, I mean, maybe there is just a commercial dehumidification system that we can put in. I know they use those in the schools. I mean, all we have to do is keep the moisture out of the air. No moisture in the air, no moisture on the walls, no mold on the walls. That's all it is. And we've never had a building envelope specialist look at that building. We've had architects.
What do they know?
Well, they're not building envelope specialists.
That's true.
There's green builders out of Westford, and there's others
Should I not go to ours?
that we can use.
You can go to ours. No, I need to know.
Is somebody joining us?
Yeah.
Moving around.
Okay, we'll put this back on the next agenda. We'll get that report we'll take, and maybe, Paul, you could work on the different areas we may want to work on, and then let's see if we can get somewheres with it. At this point, we're leaving status quo. The building's closed. By the time we could even get anything done, the season's over
fall.
anyhow.
Yep.
So we're going to move on and see if we can come up with a plan, and whether there are things we can do now, look at a larger plan, and we might want to have to put something out to the voters. Am I correct? That's where we're heading?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
What?
Clarification.
One clarification. Is there an appetite for us to ask Jim to get a number to remove, to clean out the facility, just empty it? Get the stuff out of there.
I think we might have
And
that
let
number
me tell
when
you-
we
let me
had
tell you
the
why.
proposal done. I think a company came in and gave us a figure to
I think they did too, yes.
move it all out, empty
Yeah.
it, store
Yes,
it.
we do.
Let me tell you why, and I'm getting too deep into the weeds, and if I am, Dave will give me an eye roll. So a couple of these exhibits that are there are in these, lovely Dr. Libby enclosures. These are glass enclosures. And Lena was keen to point out that, and there's stuff inside the enclosures, the animals in there and there's fuzz on it. And Lena was keen to point out that those things have to be disassembled and she said, I'm not doing that because, they're pretty creaky. So is there an appetite to leave all that stuff in place or get it out of there?
Let me go see if I can find in my files. We did have that
So we
quote,
had a
moving out
proposal
quotes.
Right.
Yeah.
to remove everything out when it was
Store.
under consideration for
Correct.
construction. The only thing that was not going to be moved, they were actually going to encapsulate it, was the alligator, crocodile.
That's
And
what I
the,
think.
and the moose, I think, too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
and
have that someplace. I will
Okay,
I
good.
will
Look
find
for
it.
I think I can lay
And
my
in fact,
hands on
Lena
it.
said that alligator, she wouldn't, if you sneezed at it, it might be a problem. So
Correct.
if you've got a number, if you have a proposal, for that would not be a bad idea to revisit it, if that would be okay. Take a look at it.
Give
We'll
us
see
something to
if
look at.
we can find that.
I talked to a firm that specializes in mold remediation in museums, and they weren't in this area, so they couldn't help us, of course, but they said that they actually have to take, when they do it, every single case has to be cleaned for mold, every single artifact has to be vacuumed to get all the mold spores off of it.
Yeah.
Anything that can be wiped, but a lot can't be wiped because it will destroy the artifacts, and then those artifacts have to be put back in after the building is completely cleaned. Because if there is mold in the beaver hair,
It keeps going.
then the spores will just fly in the air, stick against the wall, and away you go again.
We
Damn
got it.
beavers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
So-
We understand, you're right. We all set? We comfortable with that now?
Yep.
Move on. The next item on the agenda is the voting information distribution on town property. This came to all of us, or came to me, and I had it sent out to, came to all of us from Pat Waterman. And it is from the Secretary of State's office, and it's talking about that the town should have a policy about partisan events taking place on town property, to make sure we don't have a bias, and any activity by a town or any elected official which appears to favor one party candidate over another gives voters a bias to suspect partisan by the official who conducts the election. Your select board and town council will want to evaluate whether a partisan organization is appropriate sponsor of a nonpartisan activity to be conducted on town property. And I put it in here to see what the Board of Selectmen wanted to do and how we wanted to move forward. I think we should have a policy. I think we should have, I don't have any problem if the Democrats want to rent a space, or the Republicans, and it's open to both of them. It seems like it's more if there is a partisan bias, that we aren't equal, that we have a policy that we will, equal to everybody.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that, Linda. I think we should definitely want to, be consistent that way, that it's open to everybody to participate in their own way and stuff, so it's good for one group, be good for the other, same group, opposing group, so.
Okay. Dave, with this came a lot of information on the election and
Yeah,
stuff like that, but it was the front email.
the email.
Are you okay with us getting an attorney to help us write up something, Dave?
I'm fine with.
Brian?
I mean, this is pretty clear. It shouldn't take them long to do it.
Nope. Paul?
I'm thinking.
You're ruminating?
I'm still ruminating.
Okay,
He's not
don't hurt yourself.
responding.
Yeah, I do think a policy is not a bad idea. And if you permit me another minute, I'll tell you why you really want a policy. There was a case that I don't know how far up in Courtland it went, but it was it went up into the courts. Fountain Square in downtown Cincinnati. Holiday time. People came forward and put up a menorah. Someone said you should put up a Christmas tree. Someone came down and put up a Christmas tree because we wanted to, or they wanted to do equal. The next thing you know is somebody came down and put a cross with a sheet on it. Someone said, that's not right. And it went up to the courts, and the courts said equal treatment for everybody. So you understand the symbolism of some of these things. So I think it's important that the town have a hands-off. We're not supporting one or the other. The question is, does the Green Party get a space or whatever? And I think that all ought to be incorporated, or does, XYZ party or non-XYZ party. We ought to have a policy that kind of is broad enough, specific enough, that says, we're not in this to favor one or the other, and you got to go through some kind of a, permitting process, a permit to use, whatever.
Yeah,
So I support that.
yeah, it says your local and legal counsel will want to evaluate whether a partisan organization is an appropriate sponsor for a nonpartisan activity to be conducted on town property.
And I would add that, ask that we include symbolism,
Okay?
just symbols. Because symbols are statements of whomever, and we just got to be very hands-off and fair. Be my coaching here.
Is there an issue when there is a group that we may not want to have rent a public building for an event?
I think we just need to have a policy. I don't think that if it is a space, it needs to be open to everybody.
Okay, so that would be terrorist organizations, groups that are vilifying individuals of certain races, sex, creeds, colors, and religions. That's all okay.
Well, if I
Yeah.
could. So that was my little preamble. In the city of Cincinnati, Fountain Square, this was in 1990. Clearly, a menorah denotes a religious organization. A Christmas tree denotes a religious organization. And a cross with a sheet on it also denotes what is believed to be a religious organization, but it's an organization that is known to practice, potentially hate speech. we don't like certain people of certain color or certain religion. And it was, hey, if it's good for the Catholics, it ought to be good for me. And so that went far. So I would ask that our lawyer think deeply about
Correct.
what,
And I brought this up last year.
yeah, what
Same thing. It's like we always revisit things that I talk about a year later.
Brian, this came to us, and it is a recommendation out of the Secretary of State that we do something. That's why we're
Good for
moving
you.
forward on it.
Okay.
And we can decide whether what the best way is to deal with that. So are we all in agreement?
Yeah.
Nope.
The town council is going to look at it and decide what we should do?
He's going to draft us something. He's not going to decide what we're going to do.
We
He's
get to
going
do
to
that.
draft us something to look at, as he always does. Okay?
Yeah, and he should, in his drafting, he should be thinking about organizations that are considered terrorist organizations, hate groups, and other things to make sure that, that we're covered.
Right.
Jim, will you please add that to it?
Got it.
Okay?
I agree with that.
All right, other business.
So, if anybody's been watching me, I apologize. I've been watching the weather. We have Lake Winnipesaukee Day on Friday night, and we're supposed to have some rain coming through. So what I'm going to plead to the board is we're going to make a decision by tomorrow at noon whether or not we postpone the event to Sunday. Would the board entertain adding to our special event permit a rain date if necessary due to the hurricane coming up the coast for the event to be swapped from Friday night to Sunday night? Same time, same location.
I'll make that motion.
I was going to do
I beat you. He says
You can
that
second.
nobody ever makes a
Second.
motion, so I want to make sure I did
all right,
that.
No, I don't think I should vote on this, so I have to
it.
abstain
We have to
for
vote
this.
on it. Second.
Any comments?
Oh, to just understand, if we can keep it on Friday night, that is our 100% intention too, because it's going to be a huge lift to move it to Sunday night. So if we can keep it on Friday night, we're doing our very best to do that.
So the
this-
motion is to move it from Friday night to Sunday night.
Weather permitting.
Because of the weather,
The hurricane,
hurricane.
yeah.
And it will have all the same time, and everything will be identical, but
Yep.
we're just changing the date.
Correct.
And the mountain won't be there, right?
That's the only piece of the puzzle we'll lose is the Mount Washington cruise ship, because they already have a daily schedule. And I tried to get to see if they could swap out and use their sister ship, the Spirit, and they said they don't have the staff to bring the boat over for that night.
Brad put his boat in the water the other day. Maybe we could just tie his boat up and we could put Bubby's tubby at the dock and let her rip.
Yeah, bring up
Okay.
Bring out the pontoon.
pontoon boat.
We have,
Brian, I say this, what's going to happen here if you have to move it, you said Herculean, it's going to be a major lift, and I'm sure everybody who's sitting out there doing a big shit if we have to do that, but thank you if you have to do it, because it's going to be hard.
What was the question?
Mark, you're good with that, right?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
cops are good.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we've taken care of that. Town managers report.
A couple real quick items. Number one, we've been receiving phone calls regarding the new billing system
Yeah,
for electric, water, sewer. Understand that there has been some challenges with getting the new system up and running. We're just about there. If you're not receiving your bills, you will receive them. Do not hesitate to call in if you have to. And we will be waiving late fees. I believe it's for a 90-day period during this transition. So we're almost there. Bear with us. We know that it's been a challenge. Understand it's also been a challenge for the staff. So there's that. And the second thing I would like to say is September 7th, there's going to be property auction. We have 8 properties that are going to be auctioned off, and that will be in this room. I believe it's at 10 a.m. It will be on the website tomorrow. So those 8 properties that are going up for auction will be on the website for people to be able to consider. And I think that's all I've really got.
Okay, we'll start with reports. Dave?
I had 2 meetings, one with the Ag Commission, another one with the Conservation Commission.
Brad?
I had, I think the only meeting I've had since our last one was the planning board last night.
Okay. Paul?
Just 2, some other kind of sidebars, but 2. So the Cable Franchise Committee met, I think it was yesterday. Jim spilled my coffee all over my stuff, but we're going to move this to public hearing. It's time. And I don't know whether we're going to have 1 or 2, but it's time for the public to speak. The minutes are out on the website of what's been covered. And then following the public hearing, the members of the committee are going to noodle, ruminate, whatever the right words are, and then make a recommendation as to what to do. I also, with Brian, attended the ambulance ad hoc committee. I think we're 3 meetings into this, and
We've gone to 2 since our last
is it 2 or is it 3?
2 since our last BOS meeting.
Okay, so I've been to 2, and we're getting organized. Would be the way I would say. I think we got to get busy, but we're getting organized.
So I was with Paul at the 2 ambulance, ad hoc ambulance committee meetings, and I think we're starting to get some focus.
We're getting organized.
It took a couple of meetings, but we're getting focused, and I think we're going to be okay. We had the Purple Heart ceremony today.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a very, very nice ceremony. And I know that I'm missing one other, but
You forgot.
but my brain's fried because I've made 400 phone calls and 75 emails for Lake Winnipesaukee Day, and we'll see what happens.
I went to that Purple Heart meeting. Brian, you and I also did a walk on the
that was it.
bike trails. And my other meeting was, I had a meeting on Russ Pond 319 grant. The town manager was there. We met with the engineer in relationship to some of the changes that had to be made for that grant. So that's all I have. Questions from the press?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Public input.
Suzanne Ryan, resident. I'd like to talk to you about roads. At one of your previous selectmen's meeting, you made a decision to be consistent that all roads would be, I believe it was 20 feet. I would say consistency is for cake batter, not roads. And that there's reasons that some roads need to be different width than others. And since it's been brought into my neighborhood, I believed it, but I never really looked at it closely. I have now. Jennis Farm Road has been, you might say, reclaimed, and a step was missed. A procedural step was missed that Brad, as a planning board member, should have thought of. I should have thought of initially, and I didn't. But when it got into my neighborhood, it dawned on me. There's a state statute that says for scenic roads, the planning board must hold a public hearing. Scenic roads we have, and I'll give these to you.
Thank you. We have, according to the master plan, which unfortunately, I think we're just getting away from using all the time. Because in the transportation section, to digress here, there's a whole section on sidewalks. It's very interesting as to what they say, how you should approach planning and maintaining and going forward with sidewalks. But my issue this evening is scenic roads. We have 1, 2, 3. We have Avery Road, Bickford Road, Chick Road, Cooper's Road, Cotton Mountain Road, Cotton Valley Road, Jennis Farm Road, Haynes Hill Road, North Wolfeboro Road, Pleasant Valley Road, Pork Hill Road, Sewell Road, Stoneham Road, and Trask Mountain Road. And I'm concerned right now about Stoneham Road, which is off of, for those of you who haven't been up there, you might be wanting to take a trip up there. Stoneham Road is right off of Jennis Farm Road. And I see that as the next shiny object. And I like to make sure it doesn't happen without a public hearing. And it is a state statute, 231, 157, and 158. I'm not going to go into the details of it. It's very clear that unless it's a dire emergency, trees of a certain diameter should not be cut. Everybody knows you don't touch stone walls, so I don't have to repeat that. But the ball got dropped because Northern Tree is going up there and doing what has to be done. I'm not complaining about that, but what I'm saying is there's a process, and people wouldn't be shocked and alarmed when they see all this going on had it preceded with a public hearing, and public could weigh in and say, well, could you just maybe go a little lighter on some of this work? I don't know who dropped the ball. I don't know who gave permission to do that. It's I think, a collaborative thing with the DPW department and perhaps with electric, because they're cutting on the side where the electric wires are, so maybe that's it. And good, they're taking down the dead ash trees. But it's not right. I just heard you say to Sarah, we like to put the same process for the municipality as we do for individuals. And this did not happen. And further, there was an agreement made with the people over on, I think it's Stoddard Road, by the Board of Selectmen. There was a whole lot of meetings and a whole lot of discussion as to what the width of the road would be and what portion would be maintained. So I got to looking up Dallas Road. And Dallas Road Dallas Road is now called Jennis Farm Road. Sorry, it would confuse some of you. But in 1982, Dallas Road, by a vote of the Selectmen, because there was a whole issue about the width, there was a motion made by Selectman Brewitt, and it was moved and voted unanimously that Dallas Road would maintain a width of 20 feet, including the shoulders, and that it was understood that necessary maintenance for drainage and for emergency and for plowing would be subject per the road agent at the time. But it was never like it is now. I tried measuring it, and it's way over 20 feet, including the shoulders. And further, we have, down with Marie, I imagine now, we have a book that somebody put a lot of time in measuring all these roads.
and they measured the width and the length. And also, which is Dallas Road, it was between 16 and 20 feet. And all of these roads, not all, every single one of them, but the majority of roads, there's deeds recorded for them that says what the widths of the roads are. And in 1934, and by a vote of the town meeting in March, the deed was recorded for Dallas Road at that width. So we're not doing our due diligence when we're just going out, yahoo, we're going to do this work on the roads. So I think I've made my point. I hope that no work continue on scenic roads without public hearing. Whatever's planned sits on the back burner till it's figured out. My second issue is, and I'm trying to understand something. Mr. Pino, you have periodically at different meetings updated the Board of Selectmen and the public about employees, their positions, their jobs, how you're moving them around. But I've tried piecing it together. Something happened today that kind of ticked me off. I said, I'm not going to bring it up now because enough is enough. And I don't want to hear it's because it's a default budget, because you have an undesignated reserve fund that we just heard about from last year. So we know that there's always money left over. And there will be this year that can be tapped. So I'm trying to understand what's going on with town staff. And I think it started with when David Ford retired. And I know you advertised for an engineer. I question if there was enough money projected for that position or whether the ad was adequate or went around more than New Hampshire. At any rate, it never got filled. And so I think what happened is there's a game of switching people around. And you had that vacancy, and you had that money, too. So we put Brad in as part of that part-time position, doing parts of that work, which I question. I won't question it tonight, but I think I just did.
Suzanne, can you just hurry up?
Okay, so I'll go through the list quickly.
Yes, please
So
do
we
that. Thank you.
have, started with Dave Ford, and in no special order. We had IT person that's gone. So we have a website issue, and that's a present issue. We had water and sewer person, was advertised in May. I don't know what became of that. We have a public works equipment operator advertised, I think around the same time. I'm not sure what happened to that. We had a part-time treasurer, and the ad is still on the website for that. I don't know what's happening with that, but it's still on the website. We have a new deputy public works director. I don't know if we do, but that's a position that's advertised. We have HR moved up to help finance director. We have deputy finance director that may make more work for the associate finance person. We have planning board director, well overdue, gone. We have a present Pop Whalen operator, manager, gone. We have a present ZBA minutes taker, gone, temporary person in her place, and I think there's a backstory to that. We have KC, finance director, promoted to assistant town manager. Now that's a real sticking point with me. I can find no state law that says that anywhere in the state of New Hampshire, there's a provision for an assistant town manager. the position just doesn't exist in the state of New Hampshire. But I would like to see a job description for that. If you're going to do it, let's see a job description. And then we have, as I said, we have Brad. So, and nothing the selectmen can do, but we got five police officers. We're down 5 police officers. So I guess the final straw with me this morning was when I found out we don't have a janitor anymore. Come on. We got someone that got rid of the janitor service. We've got someone that comes in, I guess, twice a week, and they only vacuum the center hall. Toilet paper on the floor in the bathroom. No one's cleaning the employees' offices anymore. You can't tell me out of the money that we have, you can't find money. Tell somebody like Brad not to put so many hours in and get a janitor back here. That's not right that the staff has to be without a service that cleans their office and cleans the bathrooms. They're cleaning the bathrooms. And so anyway, I know you want me to wrap it up. So to me, without a comprehensive educational comment from the town manager as to what his plan is or was or is going to be with the upcoming budget and what's happened and what is going to happen, to me, what we have right now is simply reorganizing the chairs on the Titanic. You're just reorganizing, and it doesn't make any sense. And I think it probably could be explained, and it hasn't been explained. And I'm here as a taxpayer saying, it doesn't make sense to me, no janitor.
Is there anybody else in the public who'd like to give us any public comment? Hearing none, can I have a motion to go into non-public?
Second.
Oh, whoops, Ann got it. Oh,
I would just like to second what Suzanne says, that concerns are rampant. And there's a lot of tax dollars coming in, and people are really worried.
okay, can I have a motion to go into non-public?
So move.
Dave?
Second.
Brad? Dave,
Yes.
yes. Brad,
Yes.
yes. I'm yes. You're yes. Everybody's yes.